Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be continuing with our Windows domain build, and what we're going to be doing is our Exchange server, which fits quite nicely within our domain. It's a single server, so it's not on our Exchange server isn't going to be built onto our domain controller, which is an option, but not always the best option. When playing with the Windows domain, it's good to separate each server out, especially in a virtual environment, because then you can snapshot and restore things individually. Our Exchange server is going to be Exchange or EXCH, and it's going to be .11 within our /24 range. Default gateway the same as the rest, and our DNS server is going to be our domain controller. So that's what it's going to use to sort of synchronize our email around network. And then what we should do is install Outlook onto these two, and then prove an email exchange between two test users. That's quite simple. Cool. Let's get to it. So I've already got the two web servers up and running. So I've got, I've already got my two servers up and running. I've got my domain controller on the left here, which you can see Active Directories, users and computers, and DNS. And then on the right hand side, you can see I've got my Exchange server. I've already run sysprep on it, so you don't have to see all that again. I'm going to quickly set the IP address, set the host name, and join it to the domain. And then I'm going to start installing Exchange server on it. I've already got the ISO for Exchange Server 2019 installed, not installed, but downloaded off the Windows. Hold on, let me go back. Right, so change adapter options. I've already got it. I've already got the Exchange Server 2019 ISO downloaded off Microsoft's website through the evaluation program, which gives you availability to learn and test and then delete after 90 days. So as long as you don't use it in production environment, I'm using it for purely building and playing with, really. So just going to set the IP address first, 192.16. Oh. Just check our IP addresses quickly. And I'll put that on my other screen just to... Right, so 192.168.10.11/24 automatically populates 192.168.10.254, last usable within the /24, 192.168.10.1, which is our DNS server, which is our domain controller. I can tick validate, and that will validate on completion. I'm going to rename, and it should be a generic name pop up. Okay, I'll do it my usual way of right clicking on this PC, properties, and then go down to rename this PC and rename it to EXCH. Next, and that should ask to reboot. I'm going to reboot it, then join it to the domain, because now it should be able to contact the domain controller. Back in a sec. Cool, so I've just made the Exchange server full screen. I'm going to send Control-Alt-Delete to it, which Control-Insert for virtual machines. Go to the desktop and join to the domain. Should really, when I'm playing with these machines, give them a few bits extra RAM. So if I just go on to close the server manager for now, right click, properties, and it should say advanced to join it to the domain. Rename this computer advanced, which is the original sort of way of doing it. Change, and domain should be cscc.lan. Providing my domain controller is awake and responding, that should drop in. Or providing I've spelled it correctly, so that's going to bin me out initially because it's there we go, ccsc.lan. There we go, that's a lot better. Brilliant. And that should reboot, and then once we've successfully rebooted, and then I'll start installing our Exchange server. So I'll be back with you in a sec. So that's us back and logged on as administrator. Once server managers up and loaded, we can confirm that we're actually on the domain. So that should take a few seconds, just to let all the services drop in and sync. Local server, and we're on a work. Oh, there you go. Did you see that change from work group to LAN, which is good? I was getting concerned then. I thought I joined the domain wrong. Cool. So we're on a domain. We've got our IP address, and we're all set. I'm just going to double check our domain controller, and so at the minute we can't see Exchange within that. And if I refresh it, we can see Exchange pop up in our DNS, and it's an A record. It's not yet an MX record, which is our domain. So I can add, in theory, what I'm going to do is add in a MX record under the same IP address, but give it mail dot. So put mail dot ccsc.lan, and that's going to be our reference for our mail server. So if I say mail dot, and that's going to be our fully qualified domain name, and then select, and then if I select our Exchange server, so it's saying point at our Exchange server, but it's going to be our mail server. So we're going to refer to it as mail for our Exchange to send our mail on. So that's really good. So we've actually got 2 entries that we can work on for this DNS. Great. Now back to our main Exchange server. So let's get it installed. I'm going to attach the ISO quickly, which I've put into the Exchange folder on my hard drive here that I've got my VM running. So if I go VM, removable devices, CD DVD, because an ISO is a virtual CD DVD, go change and back to some cyber ranges and Windows DOM, Exchange. Cool. So if I go Exchange server and my ISO is there, attach that, make sure connected is ticked, only on this VM workstation I've got, and it should drop in as we see there, and let's run it up. So I can double click it, and then bottom I've got setup or Exchange server. So I'm going to run the setup, which should run the Exchange server. I'm not going to double click this just yet because that setup should run something in a minute. There we go. There we go. It happens too often that I try to double click on too many things too quickly. So I'm going to check for updates because I've got a connected system. So this is going to go through, run some updates, and then we can decide on our Exchange server name, and then go through the build process. Okay, so obviously it's air gapped, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it's because the default gateway I've got currently set on it isn't the one that's allocated to point at the big wide world. When I'm building this Exchange server, it is going to require quite a few additional installs or extras added on because this is a Server 2019 box, as I believe. I'm just going to double check what the operating system is. So if I just double check the operating system of the server, so this is Windows Server 2022, and we're installing Exchange Server 2019. So it's nice and up to date, but we are going to need to possibly install some additional patches or .NET framework files, things like that, that this software will require. Some of them we can do via Server Feature and Server Manager, but others we might need to install as .exes or MSI files, which are executables, and we can dump them straight from the internet really, and patch, make sure our Exchange server is nice and patched. So once this is run through, we'll come back and see what it says. Cool. So one thing that I didn't mention was with Exchange servers, it is about patience, especially when it's doing the install and prerequisite checks, and it's just sort of going along with the menu. So making sure you read all the notifications that goes through. So there are loads of like deployment assistance and helpful bits. So it's about do I want to share diagnosis? No, I'm not ready to share my diagnostics, and press OK. But it's about reading what you've got on the screen at the time. So use recommended settings, 100% agree. There are other guides on YouTube outside of mine, but this is what I've done through sort of practice as well as real world deployments. So we want to install Micorosft mailbox roles 100%. Automatic install windows and features as required, so that'll reach into Server Manager as we require and install anything extra. We want to install it on our core, so we've got available space to support the build because we've got extra number in there. We've got an extra 4 compared to that 5, and we want to build it as default. So I'm not going to put it on anything special. I'm going to just call this EXCH. Also, this is our sort of organization, so I'm actually going to call it CCSC, and apply Active Directory split permissions model, which is advisable. Then next, do I want to disable scanning for hour? No, why would I want to do that? So this is going to go through its readiness checks. This does take some time, roughly I'd say about 10 minutes, and then once it's ready to install, we click install down here and it will be grayed out and be good to go. We also tick restart as required. It may come back with a few issues, but we'll have a look when it does that. I'm not going to hang around and show you how long it does take. I'm going to sort of stay on here for a little minute and just see if we do reach anything above 0%. But cool, so we'll see in a minute once these readiness checks are complete and see what errors it comes back with and how we can troubleshoot them together. Right, see you in a sec. So it's been running for about 5 minutes now and we're up to 52%. So yeah, takes a little while. I'll come back when the pre-readiness checks are complete. Cheers. So as you can see here, the readiness check is finished, but it's come back with errors, sort of saying the first one is reboot pending from previous version. It's saying I'm not logged on to an Exchange valid account for the first member, so as administrator, so I've got to relog in as a domain administrator. And also it's saying that a little bit further down, yet again another related to not being logged as a domain administrator. Now this is saying install Unified Communications Manager API 4.0, and Active Directories doesn't exist or cannot be contacted, so that's me logging on as administrator again. And also Visual C++ 2013 redistribution package needs to be installed. So I've downloaded each of them. I'm going to quickly install them on this server and drag and drop just the X's onto the desktop and then install them. Retry this after a reboot. Well, reboot it, log on as a domain administrator once that's complete, and then retry the readiness checks. And then hopefully everything should drop in. Once I've installed them and done a reboot and logged on as a domain administrator, I'll give you a shout. So the advantage with VMware is that I can just drag and drop the X's onto the desktop. I literally just for the packages, literally just Googled what was missing. So I just Googled C++ 2013 redistribution and API 4.0 for Microsoft Communications Manager Unified, and press download. Really easy. I can include the links in the description of the video just to make it easier, and also include the link for the ISO of Server 2019 for Exchange Server 2019 as well, which will be nice. So that's the first one installed, so that's the Communications Manager, and we'll go for x64 distribution of the C++. Install, that will take a few minutes. So that's installed. So that's the 2 installed packages. I'm just going to restart, and then once we're restarted, log on as a domain administrator, pull back up, and I'll start running the readiness checks again. It'll probably have to retry and configure the actual Exchange, so I might have to rerun the setup and put EXCH in as the first name again, but I'll get to the point where we'll see if there's any errors. See you in a sec. So that's us now redoing the readiness check. So I had to go through start to finish. I had to put the CCSC in the mailbox roles in again. So once we're ready and all the checks are complete, I'll go through, see if there's any errors again, and then fix them, and then hopefully I'll be able to install. I'll see you at the finish line. So we just run the downloaded file, get it installed, retry the readiness check. So I'll come back when hopefully it says it's ready to go. Third time lucky. See you in a sec. So I've just installed the IIS rewrite module and rerunning through the readiness checks, and within a few minutes hopefully it should say it's ready to install. That'll be hopefully after this menu here. Once I'm ready to install, it did get me to reboot post a couple of software installs as well. As I said, it's a timely and sort of maybe a little bit tedious process, and then as soon as we're ready to go, always the last 1%, was never 1%, but here we go. So that is now ready to install after a lot of prerequisite software. It's either a matter of googling your way through and looking at the errors. So that's me now installing. That'll take quite some time. That'll go through 14 steps of installing it, and then we'll access our Exchange Management console, where it used to be a full-on Windows. It's now web-based, so we'll bring up the management console and create some mailboxes. Cool. I'm going to let this run. It probably takes up to about half an hour, 40 minutes to install Exchange in the background, but I'll if you pause, but I'll see you back then. Thanks very much. So we're about 50 minutes in and 16% done, so probably a percent a minute maybe. So 100 minutes, 90 minutes being 3 hours. I'll come back in about 30 minutes and see what the score is. So after a while and several reboots, the Exchange server seems to have installed successfully. I've logged on again as domain administrator. Under the start menu you can see start Microsoft Exchange Server 2019. When I click on the administration center, that should load a web GUI for the administration center effectively. That is not running as HTTP, it's running as HTTP, so we could do with installing some certificates there, but I'm going to leave this just because it's a bit of a quick build. Then we're going to log on as the domain administrator, so CCSC administrator, capital P at SSW0ID, and log on. And we should take a little minute just to load in. It is doing it locally, but this is the Exchange Administrator Center. One thing with this is it does require a lot of RAM. As during the reboots, I have had to increase the actual level of memory and CPU power it's got. So just quickly going back into the VM settings, I'm currently using 8 gig of RAM and 8 gig processor, which is four processors and 2 cores. That's sort of the limits of my computer is allowing to access, but if you're doing it on a physical machine, you can do more. But to get it running, that's what I needed to do because it lost the wallpaper, things like that. You'll also notice other symptoms. For example, this Exchange web server, the front, the administrator console won't actually load. So now what we're going to do is create a couple of mailboxes. So all I'm going to do is click on mailboxes here, add mailbox, funnily enough, add in the alias. So I'm going to go test user 1, because remember it wasn't test user 01, it was test user 1. Then go for existing user, and so this is talking to the domain controller at the back, and then we click on test user 01 and save. So that should pull through that, and then if I go test user 2, providing I've got a test user 2, which I don't think I have, I'm just going to quickly jump on the domain controller and see where we're at with that. So domain controller, might need to create a secondary user, but that'll always be good because you can see how quickly it interacts. So test user 1, no, yep, I've been lazy. I definitely need a second user to prove email exchange. So I'm going to create a second user, test user 2, and just copy and paste that straight in there. File next, capital P at SSW0ID. Just set my untick, then tick, never expires. Very bad for security, but I'm just adding it as test user. So it's within the test user OU. I can see within computers, I should see all of these now. So actually I can create, just on the fly here, I can create a new organizational unit called servers. I've left the advanced protection on, so I can't just delete this OU now. And then I'm going to go onto computers, drag and drop the computers once this stops not responding. I'm probably maxing out with my Exchange server in the background. On computers, I'm going to drag and drop them into servers. Come on. Computers, drag and drop the 3 servers into servers. I'd like to. Give it a little minute, maybe one by one. Boop. Yep, don't show this again. So this will allow whatever group policies we later decide to put onto the servers to be then affected on servers, providing we do GP update /force. Right, let's get back to the Exchange server. Here we go. Right, so we've got secondary user. Oh, user 02 just popped in. So literally straight in, save, and now we've got our 2 mailbox users here, including our administrator with an administrator. Technically, we shouldn't really have the administrator have its own mailbox, because even through least privilege, we don't want to allow that to be a vector of access or an attack surface, for example. So I could actually just delete that one, but for now I'll leave it in there. Or do I? Yeah, I'll leave that in there. Next thing we're going to do is install Office on our Windows 10 and Windows 11 machines. I'll bring them up and then we'll continue from there. You might want to pause the video. See you in a sec. Hey, so we've got our Exchange server installed. I'm currently installing Outlook 2007. I do shudder, but that's just a valid copy that I've got that I'm installing on this Windows 10 machine. I'm going to show you a quick other way of accessing the Exchange server. So from a web browser, Edge is the one of choice at the minute. Normally just only used to download Google, but anyway, I'm just going to access exchange.ccsc.lan/OWA, and from there we should not get that. We should, 2 secs. I'm going to try HTTPS and get rejected, then come back in. Cool. So the OWA is the Outlook web admin or web portal. So that's basically we can log on through the web front end and check directly with the server itself. So what I'm going to do is log on as user 2 at this end, at the website front end, and then log on as user 1, which I am on my Windows 10 machine, and check the emails just there. It might have halted just because it's the install of Outlook is still happening, and Office. So this should be loading up in for 2 secs. Here we go. So I'm going to log on as user 2 here. Log on as the user. We should be able to check our inbox and see a mailbox at least. That might take a little minute just to load in because it's currently authenticating against Active Directories and then being pushed back to the mail server, then to our web front end here. All happening within my little solid state hard drive here, USB. C might I add, but at least it's USB. So this will take a little minute. Let's see how our Outlook is now ready to go. So I'm just going to quickly open up, and we can see our Outlook here. So I'm just going to click that, and that should look at our user and then be able to add straight through to the mailbox automatically. Hopefully, providing we're contacting the server okay, but if not, then I can troubleshoot the server. So, yep, I want to configure, so it's picked up our user. Next, it should pick up our mailbox, and it should be a blank mailbox. And finish. That should settle in nicely. And I'm just going to reload this. Here we go. Cool. So I'm just going to put UK time zone. Save that. So this is setting up our web OWA account, and this is our front end Outlook. So I'm just going to click. No, I'm good. I don't want to update right now because it's air gapped. And new. And moment of truth. What we should have up here is in the mailbox we should have 2. And if I send it to user02 who's logged on at the back here, if I go test to web and my mouse comes back, test to web, send that through, that should jump through onto my Exchange server within a few moments. So probably not as quick as I've just tried to do it then, but go back on the Outlook and see if it's sent. So it's in the outbox. That's sent, that's cleared the Outlook now to the Exchange server. Now on the Exchange server it should be pretty quick, hopefully. And that looks like it's halted for a minute. So wait for the website to, I have got the domain control Exchange server on a Windows 10 machine coming up here. So that should be loaded, and within a few moments it should be refreshed and we should see mail drop in. Yeah, but it's just my Windows 10 machine is halted. Cool. So I'll just wait for this to refresh and we'll be right back. And there we go, we can see the test email from user01 has dropped in and displays here fine. So email proven between 2 users, one using Outlook, one using web. Just saves on logging off as another user, logging back on a different client. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. So that's Exchange Server 19 installed on a server, Microsoft Server 22, using a domain controller and a separate mail server. Thanks very much.